if you look at the way our society has evolved and how it exists, it's very complex. How do you make sense of this civilization? If you were a person assigned to accurately describe everything that was going on today, down to the minutest detail, there's no one individual has that power or intelligence or information, knowledge. It'd be impossible. But if we look at this ancient civilization, which is Egypt, the people that we make responsible for explaining all of that are archaeologists and historians. Well, I think we expect too much of them.
Hi, everybody. This is Mind the Shift. I am Anders. I'm the host of this podcast, this channel. We've delved into the mysteries of the origins of humankind's civilization, the civilizations of humankind many times on this channel, on this podcast. And Egypt is one of the focal points of that whole discussion, not least because of the enigmatic rift between the obvious spectacular level of advancement and exactness of these ancient Egyptian artifacts and the standard story about how all this was constructed, namely with hand tools made of bronze and copper, stone and wood. There is one person who probably has had more influence than anybody else on alternative views on the textbook version of ancient Egyptian technology. He's written 3 prominent books on that subject, and that is actually a piece of news because number 3 is soon to be published. He is an engineer, and because of that, he has the perspective of precisely the people who obviously must have built the wonders of ancient Egypt. And he's very much not an Egyptologist and not an archaeologist. And precisely because of that, I would not hesitate to call him a leading expert in this field, the field of ancient technology of ancient Egypt. I'd like to welcome Christopher Dunn.
Nice to be here, Anders. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. My pleasure. So the 2 books that you are known for are, the first one is the Giza power plant, and then Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt. But today you can tell we can tell the audience about the sequel to the first one, and it has the title Giza, the Tesla Connection. The subtitle is Acoustical Science and the Harvesting of Clean Energy. Very exciting. And we'll come back to that book in a little bit, of course, because we've spoken, you and I, about making perhaps a second episode about the contents of precisely that new book, but we'll, of course, talk a little bit about it. So when is it coming out?
It should be in print by December of this year. The production schedule will make galleys available by August, so they will go out to reviewers for commentary, and then of course the final edits and putting the book together, and then the publication date will be December 2023. We expect it to be on Amazon for pre-orders this spring sometime. So you could still reserve a copy if you're interested in it.
Wonderful. Yeah. I'm excited. I'd love to read it when I can lay my hands on it. Of course. But I want to back up a little bit before we talk a little bit about that book, and of course even more about the 2 books that have been out for quite some time now, and the discussions about your findings and all that. So just to back up a little bit, because the audience of this podcast, this channel, it's a broad spectrum of people, but I think quite a few of them know about your work, but many may not know that much about your work and what you've been doing. So, Chris, how did it all start? You wrote a paper about advanced ancient tech in Egypt already in the 1980s. So why did you become so fascinated with ancient Egypt?
Well, in 1977, I bought a book entitled Secrets of the Great Pyramid by Peter Tompkins. And it was through reading that book and accessing some of the source material that he cited in his work, such as the work of William Flinders Petrie, Pierre Smythe, and other authors and researchers. I started to see the book, I started to see the Great Pyramid as more like a machine than a tomb. And the two things that actually prompted that thinking was that the interior design of the Great Pyramid, it had the appearance more of a machine with some really unusual shafts that are on different angles. You have shafts, passageways, chambers with unique design and characteristics. The King's Chamber has unique design and characteristics, and so none of the features within the Great Pyramid, to my mind, actually supported the idea or the theory that it was used as for a place of burial for Khufu. The other aspect to it is it wasn't just the way it looked, but how it was measured and what was discovered in those measurements. And so what we can say, or we could summarize it by saying, not only did it have the appearance of a machine, but on a scale of acres, it had the precision of a machine. Because, when you look at some of the findings of Petrie when he was measuring the casing stones, he declared them to be ultra precise and normally not found, precision normally not found except in, the straight edges of opticians. He never said that it was had optical precision, but he referenced one of the tools that opticians may use in their work. So it was that caught my eye. Another aspect to it, on the base of the Great Pyramid, the precision of the base is within 7/8 of an inch, over 13 acres. That is remarkable when you consider that modern requirements for laying down foundations and how precise they should be, they require a foundation to be within 20 thousandths per foot of being accurate, and 20 thousandths of an inch.
That sounds pretty accurate to me.
Well, it's about the thickness of a thumbnail. And so, that 20 thousandths of an inch over 13 acres, 20 thousandths of an inch over per foot over 13 acres would work out to be about 15 inches. And here you have something from antiquity, prehistory, that is within a fraction of that, 7/8 of an inch. So, it's like, that is something to take note. And then it was within 3 minutes of a degree of being aligned with true north.
Yeah,
but then you
go amazing.
But then you go into the interior of the Great Pyramid, and a lot of people they say, "Oh, the casing stones, the casing stones." Petrie measured the alignment of the descending passage, and he noted that the descending passage is straight through the constructed portion, because the entrance of the Great Pyramid on the north face, it goes down about 150 feet before it hits bedrock. It goes down on a 26-degree angle, and then it hits bedrock at about 150 feet. But over the 150 feet, it is within, again, 20,000ths of an inch of being absolutely straight over 150 feet. That's remarkable.
It's pretty difficult to do that with hand tools, isn't it?
Well, it's the thing about precision is that it is a concept that did not always exist in how humans perform their work. Particularly when you're talking about precision down to microns or thousandths of an inch. Those kind of tolerances they did not find them necessary until we started to develop more advanced technologies, and such as the printing industry. That's where flat surfaces, it became understood that you would get better printing if you had two perfectly flat surfaces pressing against each other. And then the Industrial Revolution, the development of machine tools, and other machines, where it was obviously it required precision in order for these machines to function, and so that's where that kind of precision became more well known and understood. Even though an intimate understanding of it is you have to rely on those people who are practitioners within certain trades, that it is a requirement for them to work. An understanding and a practice that achieves that precision is a requirement for them to hold down a job, because whatever they ship to their customer has to be within certain tolerances, and those tolerances define how precise an object must be. And there's many different. There are different classes of trades, for instance, and so the requirements on a quarry worker would be less than the requirements, say, on a carpenter, and the requirements on a carpenter would be less than the requirements on a skilled machinist, and the requirements on a skilled machinist would be less than the requirements on a tool and die maker, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you go down, where you say, okay, in this trade, you work to within, say, 1/32 of an inch or a millimeter. This trade, you work to within 10,000ths of an inch. This trade, you work to 1,000ths of an inch. This trade, you work to 2/10,000ths of an inch, which is 0.0002 inches, all the way down to nanometers, where you are now working with wavelengths of light, and you work in optical precision. So
Yeah. Anyway, this is all it's fantastic. And I can hear now that you are describing these things very much from the perspective of an engineer, and you're talking about different trades here and engineering specificities around this. But and it's one thing to visit the pyramids of Giza and read about these things, and as an engineer see that these levels of precision wouldn't be necessary to build a tomb and all that. But to go from there to actually having it become your passion, as it has been, and writing books about it, that's a stretch. I guess other engineers than you have seen this, but they haven't written books about it, but you did.
Well, it was a stretch. It was a huge stretch.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad you recognize that. But when I began my studies, I was faced. Well, that was when I first got the basic idea that the Great Pyramid was a machine. And then, of course, the next question is, as any mechanic would ask, is, well, if it's a machine, what did it do? How did it function? And so that was that was one night. All of that came to be one night in 1977, in September 1977, and then the light bulb went off, and I started to see a pattern, or certain threads that said, okay, well, I need to follow this thread and find out what about the acoustics, because that seemed to be a big thing with earlier explorers. Uh, and what about some of the substances, that have been found inside the Great Pyramid? Everything about the Great Pyramid, because one of the things that I tasked myself with was everything had to have an explanation. And if there was anything, within the structure that you're going to build, say I'm going to build a virtual power plant or electron harvester shaped like a pyramid, and every detail within this structure has to work. And and that's just, say, if I'm looking as a science fiction writer into the future, and being a good science fiction writer, I cannot violate the laws of physics or anything like that. I have to well, I can stretch a little bit, like, but the objective of good science fiction is to use what is currently known about science, and then imagine in the future what it would evolve to. And that's why we have devices today that were imagined 50 years before they became a reality, like cell phones or smartphones.
They were actually imagined back in the 50s and 60s, weren't they?
Yes, right. Yeah. So so there is that part to it. There is a kind of a science fiction part to it, and then there is a kind of a historical touchstone where you go back to the source, which is the Great Pyramid, to gather more information, which inspires thought on how something may function and what it could lead to in the future. So really, it wasn't an exercise where I thought that I would rewrite history books. It's always been my policy, or if you will, my thought that I just want to start a discussion, right? And I'm not interested in saying to the Egyptians, well, you need to rewrite your history books, and this is how they should be written. That would be a little colonial of me, and probably.
Yeah, but if you were an African citizen or an Asian citizen, you might be able to do that without feeling that colonial vibe.
Yes, right. So and really,
unfortunately, you're a Westerner.
Well, that's the thing is with the Egyptians. That's what happened, isn't it? I mean, their history was written for them and handed to them.
Yeah,
say, here you go.
That's true.
Here's
true.
your history, and they go, "Oh, thank you very much." But now, now they're saying, "Wait a minute, we've been told the wrong history. This is not right."
Yeah, it's very interesting what's happening now.
Because you know what, a very interesting development after, of course, the Giza power plant was published, and the reception that it received. I mean, it was a fairly controversial and rather futuristic theory, and I didn't expect everybody to say, "Oh yeah, okay, that's it." Well, maybe I did more than what actually happened. I thought that maybe some people in the alternate space, the alternate research, or those interested in revisionist history may accept it a little more, but as it turns out, they haven't. Which, that's their right. But that didn't stop me. But it also it mirrored the reception it got from academics, and there was one of the, I think, probably the kindest comment that was made about the Giza power plant was from a professor at Wales, in Wales. He was a history professor, and in his book, Shadow Past, he said that all this sounds like something that is coming straight from fruitcake land. And so I was like, yeah, I know, yeah, okay. I write about that in my book, that is a part.
But I suppose that the independent researchers and the mainstream researchers, they had objections of different types, didn't they?
Yes, and the thing is when you, as a newcomer, and really, I'm not. When you look at the field of researchers back in the 1990s, you were looking at people like Graham Hancock, John Anthony West, Robert Bauval, and Robert Shark, who was brought in by John Anthony West. And those people were already, becoming known as operating in that space. I come along, but this wasn't my first rodeo, as they say in the States. It's because I had been published in 1984, but to most people, I'm just a newcomer. And so
that was the paper that I mentioned before. Was it a peer-reviewed paper, or what kind of article was it that you published?
It was a well, the magazine was Analog Science Fiction, Science Fact, and every month they published an article, a science fact article, and the editor was Dr. Stanley Schmidt. And he accepted the paper for publication because it was controversial, and he thought it was well presented and logical. But it did cause a bit of a firestorm. But it died. I mean, it went out there in '84. And there was a few letters to the editor. It was picked up as one of the best fact articles of the '80s and published in an anthology, Analog Essays on Science. And that was published by John Wiley in 1991. But then it wasn't really discussed until the birth of the internet and message boards, discussion boards on.
Okay.
So yeah, and one of the reader of that magazine became aware of a discussion of it, or introduced the subject to a message board on Deja News, and that was in 1995.
Okay.
And that was about the same time I got access to the internet. And then I was invited into the discussion. And so that's when I began to learn about, some of the downside of having internet discussions with faceless, nameless people. And
tell me about it. Yeah.
Some of them are using pseudonyms and, don't identify themselves. Okay,
so that's how it all started. Fascinating. Before I ask more specific questions about the Great Pyramid and all these marvelous Egyptian artifacts, I just want to know if you have, over the course of the years here, developed a similar fascination for other ancient megalithic wonders around the world, such as Sacsayhuaman in Peru, Teotihuacan in Mexico, Baalbek in Lebanon, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Angkor Wat in Cambodia. There are so many. Have you that?
Yeah. Yes, I mean there have been. I have had opportunities to visit South America, and I've been to Peru and Bolivia, and so I've been to Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, Machu Picchu,
Pumapunku.
Umapunku. Yeah, I mean that was a very interesting time. David Childress wanted to make a video of lost technologies in Peru and Bolivia. And so he got a camera guy, and we headed down to Peru. And so we were going through Peru and looking at, it was marvelous stonework, stuff like that. Certainly they had very accurate flat surfaces displayed, but I didn't see anything there that I could say with certainty that this had to have been done with a machine, because it's too precise, or the geometries are too complex. There are certain features that exist in it that you generally would not be able to achieve by hand.
No, it's more. I was in Peru in November last year, and to me, it looks more organic in a way. The structures in Peru, they're very. I mean, they're not 90-degree angles and things like that. It's just very, very strange. Some structures like Sacsayhuaman, they look like they've been. It's like petrified marshmallows almost. Very, very huge stone blocks. You can't understand how they have put them there, and how they can be so exact. I mean, the joints are so you can't even get a human hair in between the stone blocks. But they're not angular. They're not straight, which is very peculiar.
Right. I know, and they're interlocking. I mean, they have one particular stone in that Sacsayhuaman wall. It's 12-sided, and everything kind of locks together. But if you look at it and you see the way, I mean, it's the kind of wall that you would build if you built it to withstand earthquakes. Because if you look at the way the wall is fitted, when you think of lateral forces acting on the wall, you can see where the blocks will be prevented from moving.
And they have been prevented from moving for thousands of years, probably.
For thousands of years, yes. So it's a really remarkable structure, and there's nothing that I can point to and say, oh, this was machined, because look at the geometry, look at the precision, look at it's precise, but it's precise in a way that it's like, well, it has this curve, and then it comes down to a radius, and then it folds around here, and all of these. But it's all, like you said, it's more organic. It's more. It's not accurate Cartesian geometry or anything like that you would find in Egypt. It's more, I don't know, something that an artist would create.
Maybe some kind of technology that we don't know anything about, that we've lost. That builds upon other kinds of physical laws than we are used to. I don't know. I'm just speculating here, like acoustics, like vibration, like sound, things like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's all those possibilities, and I would entertain all of them, except some. There are some kind of far out theories that I don't go for. There's been some effort to argue that they were using sun disks, and so they were using focused sunlight to create these artifacts, and that is just an impossibility.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
And then the other one is the geopolymer argument, where they were actually conglomerated stone, and built like like you would build a cement structure or something like that.
Yeah.
Which
There's a
has its
French
problems.
professor, I think his name is Davidovits, who has developed this
Yeah,
theory.
Joseph Davidovits, and so there is that, and there's always a tendency to look for the most something that we can hold on to, that we understand. When something that is seemingly impossible, we're faced with something that's seemingly impossible, and it's like people will say, "Well, they must have poured them." That's a very simple explanation, right? But it's not. It's not a simple explanation. It actually introduces more complexity to it. Because if you have like a precision vase from ancient Egypt, or uh, any precision artifact, maybe the Ramses statue, which has remarkable precision and geometry associated with it, to say, well, they must have poured it into a mold. And then question becomes, okay, so how did they make the mold?
Yes. They didn't think of that.
That's why, I mean, how did they make the mold? Uh, at some point, there was machining involved, and highly precise machining. So how did they make the mold to do that? And there are no answers to that question, because it's not the right answer. We have to, can you consider, if you consider like a Ramses head, just take the head, forget about the body, and you say, okay, I'm going to make a mold that I can turn these out, a dozen a day in my shop. But you're looking at a mold where you are actually having to craft into the mold internal surfaces that will have the same precision and accuracy and geometry that you see on the final product,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
yeah. Of
all of
course. I
that,
mean, otherwise it wouldn't look the way it
it's like,
look.
well, no, I don't believe that they had machining back in ancient Egypt. They did everything with molds. And so then your question is, okay, how do they make the mold?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, you've already touched upon the controversies around your work, and I don't know what's part of it is most controversial, but I mean, of all your conclusions about what might have taken place there. But perhaps it is the one that is revealed by the title of your first book there, the Giza power plant, and you've already touched on the power plant thing here. And I know it's a complicated thing to explain in its total complexity, but can you give a brief summary of what you think was the purpose of the Giza pyramids, or at least the Great Pyramid, and why you think it was a power plant? Can you do that in a few minutes, do you think?
Well, it has a fundamental the fundamental basis for or operation of the Giza power plant. I refer to it as a coupled oscillator because of its size and dimensions. It's an integer to the planet, so it has a certain harmonic relationship to planet Earth, and a coupled oscillator, if it's attached to a larger vibrating body, as long as that and then caused to couple with it and oscillate with it harmonically or otherwise, the as long as the larger vibrating body continues to vibrate, then the oscillator will continue to draw energy out of it.
And where does that go? Where does the energy go? Is it cordless? Is it well, maybe
Well,
that's what you're talking about in your
yeah,
new book.
that's just the fundamental kind of explanation for the shape of the pyramid. The selection of materials and its location on the planet. But then you get into, okay, so you've got a vibrating mass of rock. I understand that. Now, what do you do with it? And then we get into, in the first book, we get into the function of the different passageways and chambers and shafts within the Great Pyramid, and what they teach us, if we try to explain why they exist, their characteristics, their attributes. For instance, the shafts in the King's Chamber. What were they for? Do we buy the conventional theory that they were air shafts used to ventilate the chamber, or were they something else? And in the Great Pyramid machine model, obviously, I say, well, they must have been something else. And so, taking the measurements of the air shafts, you find that they're very unique measures, 8.4 by 4.8, and with 8.309 inches, or 21 centimeters, being the wavelength of hydrogen, then you have a suitable weight guide for a hydrogen microwave. So that leads you to the Queen's Chamber, because there are substances and observations that were made in the Queen's Chamber going back to the 1870s with Wayman Dixon, and that chamber is reported to have been covered with salt, up to 1 inch thick. And then it has these shafts that were not connected to the chamber. There are two of them, one on the south side, one on the north side. And they were discovered in 1872 by Wayman Dixon. And he noted a crack in the wall, and that's how he discovered them. He pushed a rod through the crack, and the rod it met no resistance. So he had the limestone chiseled away, and they ultimately went through to reveal the shaft. It had like 5 inches of limestone that's still left in the wall block where the shaft came near to the inside of the chamber, but it never did connect with it completely, leaving 5 inches of limestone between. And so that was a mystery. You had the salt, and then of course the reported disgusting smell that drove people out of the chamber in the early days. That was the responsibility for that disgusting smell was people going in there and relieving themselves. Okay. And so then, there are other features within the southern shaft that show that there is a significant erosion in the shaft. The presence of gypsum, and then nothing was known about where the exit was, even though they searched the outside of the pyramid and to see if there was an exit point for this shaft coming from the Queen's Chamber. They couldn't find one. And in 1992 or 3, I think it was 3, when Rudolf Gantenbrink, you probably heard of him, he's a German robotic engineer. He was commissioned by the German Archaeological Institute in Cairo to build a robot to go up those shafts and clean them. It was intended to clean out the shafts from the King's Chamber and install ventilation fans because of the number of visitors that were going through the Great Pyramid. Humidity was building up, and so they were concerned about the integrity of the structure. And so then, after he had cleaned out those shafts, and he actually created, took measurements of the different angles, distances, and created a website where you can see his CAD drawings of these features. he presented the idea to I think Rainer Stadelmann, who is the director of the German mission there, that he also explored the southern shaft in the Queen's Chamber because nobody knew where it ended. And so he thought that if he could build a robot to go up that shaft, he may find where it would end. And so his robot, UPOAT-2, which, I mean, this was a very well known expedition on his part, and it's his work was released, I think, by Robert Laval.
That's where they found the corroded metal things at the end of one tunnel, was it?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Right. And so his robot goes over 200 feet up this shaft that's on a like 43 degree or 39 degree angle, and then it comes up to a blockage where two metal fittings are protruding through the block, and that was it. I had adjusted my theory in 1993 because I had proposed that those shafts, because they were closed on both ends, that they were used to feed chemicals into the Queen's Chamber from the north and south, two different chemicals, and then those chemicals mixed and boiled off hydrogen, and then the signature for the hydrogen is, of course, in the King's Chamber, but then that's that wavelength of microwave affecting hydrogen gas that filled the Great Pyramid ultimately would convert the energy flowing through the Great Pyramid and drive that hydrogen to a higher energy state to where it would become suitable for a population inversion where a microwave signal coming into that energized gas would stimulate emission of photons, or the electrons would be bumped down to ground state, releasing a little package of energy, which would
I mean, to a layman, you would want to know in what form what form of what kind of final energy came out of the pyramids. I mean, for the population to use there, for the society to use. Was it electricity, or was it? What was it?
Well, it's electromagnetic energy, and so
and how was it how was it harnessed? Some people say that it was transmitted from, or I mean, I have read your second book, not this one, but so maybe it's in your book, of course. But some people think that it was some kind of transmission from the tip of the pyramids to the obelisks that were placed around the area, and that they were some kind of antenna. What do you think of that?
I don't discount it entirely. When you look at the sophistication of those obelisks, and the understanding that, my understanding, having been through Egypt, visited the temples, and all through Egypt from north to south, an understanding that they seem to be focused a lot on acoustics. Even in their temples, they seem to, acoustics was very important to them. And so if you consider an obelisk being a standing spire, to say that it's just a piece of dead weight and it's not really doing anything, that is the wrong, because anything that is attached to the earth is going to be influenced by forces within the earth itself, and also within the atmosphere. And so if there is,
Well, look at lightning
kind of
in high trees, for instance.
some kind of Tesla transmission of wireless energy or something like that. Uh, I would not discount the idea that the pyramids played, the obelisk played some part in that. But I'm not convinced, but I don't discount it. I think,
Did water play an important part? I mean, some people also talk about the possibility that there were enormous amounts of water floating beneath, actually beneath the whole Giza plateau in canals and things like that, and that was also pivotal in the in the creation of of the energy that was needed. What do you think
yeah,
about it?
um, I think that has a lot of value, and it's obvious when you go around the Giza plateau and you look at the various shafts, the very deep shafts uh, that exist on the Giza plateau. You have some that show signs of wear or erosion, presumably by water, and then very close by, there are other shafts that show no signs of erosion at all. And so when you look at different hydraulic systems, well, just take the hydraulic system you have in your house, right? When you flush the toilet, uh, and the tank empties and goes down. Um, in your sewer system, there is a vent pipe that leads to the outside to allow air, so you don't, you're not drawing a vacuum in the pipe. So, it allows the free flow of water. And so, I asked the question: are these some of these shafts vent pipes and others supply pipes, or for whatever reason they had? But my thinking on the full system, which for one single person it'd be impossible. You know, it's impossible for me. Maybe somebody else could do it, but to understand completely everything that was going on the Giza plateau with all the pyramids, the first, second, third, all the Queen's pyramids to the east of the Great Pyramid, to the south of Menkaura's pyramid. You have all these pyramids. You have all these structures near them that they call temples, and then there are myriads of shafts and tunnels that go under the Giza plateau, and some of them connecting with the Sphinx, and it's like there is more going on there than we know about. But as I look at it, looking back, my first book, while it took the idea of not necessarily the function of water or hydraulics, but it did address a means of causing the Great Pyramid to vibrate through a kind of a Tesla technology, the earthquake machine. I did refer to that because it did need some stimulation to get the system going.
Chris, in your book, Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt, the one that I've read, you rank Egypt's 6 most impressive wonders, and you top the list with, if I'm not mistaken, the Ramses statues in Luxor, and the Giza pyramids end up as number 3 only, which would surprise many, I think. Can you explain that ranking?
Oh well, I think yeah, it's.
Or have you changed it now after a few years?
I'm allowed to. Am I allowed to?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. At the time, the thing is that when I started to key into the Ramses statue, that started back in 2004 when I first went to look. Actually, no, it first started in 1986. And I wasn't necessarily interested in tombs or statues or things like that, because I was more interested in what I considered to be engineered stuff, like pyramids and stuff like that. That was my main focus. So when I started to notice something really special about the Ramses statue, um, I became obsessed with it. It was like such an amazing period of time in my life when and I actually went back to Egypt several times because I thought maybe I could get, and I should have looked to this, and I need to get a macro lens, uh, all these things going through my mind. I need to go to the British Museum and look at their statue and take photographs.
You go about these things very meticulously. It's obvious in the book. Can say.
And so all of this was like a journey through lost technologies of ancient Egypt. It was my journey of discovery with the Ramses statue, which was entirely different to the Giza power plant. It was related but different. And I think when I boosted the Ramses statue to the number one on the list, it was because of the complexity of the geometries and the precision of the geometries, which, if you were to compare that with what we have today in terms of what we use those kind of geometries and precision for, I could tell you, well, you would find the same kind of precision and feel of a surface where radii flow together from one radius to another, free form, blah blah. You could look at like a car, a car body or something like that, or even a mouse, that you might be using with your computer.
So precision manufacturing is what
precision manufacturing, right? And then when you look at
because I mean people see these things as artistic artifacts, like statues in Rome or Greece or something like that. But you write in your book that would be, I mean, if a person, if an artist would do this, it would look completely different. It wouldn't look like this, right?
Right. I mean, it looks more. If you kind of just take the major features and do a line drawing, a geometric line drawing using, ellipses or blended curves around the Ramses statue, you come up with something that looks almost cartoonish. And and then when you look at some of the features of the statue, you see that there are certain features that do not include what you would look for on take a hand, and you have knuckles and you have folded skin on the knuckles and stuff like that. Not Ramses statues. I mean, it's almost like the programmers of the those who program the machine to do that. They use the least amount of machine code to produce these objects, but they made them look impressive.
They are identical. And how many are they? The Ramses statues that you've looked at?
They claim there are over 100,
and they're all the same. They're all identical, are they?
They have yes. I mean, you can't mistake the face of Ramses. The geometries and the proportions are the same with every one of them. There's no mistake.
It's fantastic. It's amazing. I mean, it's really compelling when you read the book that this is made by machine. This is manufactured because as the standard story has it, individuals have chiseled out this as like artistic work. They wouldn't be identical. They would be the statues would be individual things. And I mean, look at Rome or
Right.
Greece, as I said, that's completely different.
Yeah, no, there are people out there who really don't grasp the implications of it, or even understand uh, the demands of uh, from engineers or artists, or if you're a sculptor, what is demanded of you to replicate a Ramses statue. And the first thing you have to do is you have to have very accurate measurements, three-dimensional measurements of the statue before you could even begin to start chiseling one out. And there have been attempts to argue against the idea that these are more advanced than what sculptures generally are known to produce, but the evidence they present does not reflect a good understanding of engineering and precision, particularly. So, you know, you have to look at the most difficult aspects of the work. I mean, this has been proven recently, and just on a very small object. There was a pre-dynastic urn, Egyptian urn, that has recently been scanned using structured light scanning. And then an STL file was created. That STL file was now made available on the internet, and people are doing their own analysis of this ancient Egyptian urn.
Chris, let's talk a little bit more about that Egyptian urn or vase that has been analyzed now recently by way of modern methods. And I'm gonna share screen now to show this, because there's an article about it. Let's see here. If I just share screen here like this for all to see, I think everybody can see that now. There, you got it, Chris.
Yes.
So this is the vase. So can you just walk us through a little bit who did this analysis, and how was it done?
If we go back to the beginning, as far as the current owner is a gentleman in New York. His name is Adam Young, and he bought it from an antiquities dealer in New York, and has had it displayed for a number of years. I don't know how many years, but Adam was very interested in the lost technologies aspect of the ancient Egyptians, and that there is a story that hasn't been told, and he thought that this particular artifact that he had could contribute to that story. So in 2018, Adam signed up with his friend for my Lost Technology tour of Egypt, and that was held in 2018. And while there, he became friends with my son, Alexander. So Alex and Adam became fast friends. Adam shared the information with Alex about the vase. And then it came to the idea that the vase should be examined by metrologists. Adam actually brought it to Indianapolis, and my son Alex was working at a company called Major Tool in Indianapolis, and they kindly allowed us to use their inspection lab to do some cursory examination of the artifact, which included traditional methods for examining a piece for concentricity and runout. In other words, if you take the hole in the top of the vase how round is it? And then if you measure the lip on the outside, how concentric is that to the center hole? And all the features that flow down from the top to the bottom undergo that particular examination. One of those machines that is capable of reproducing this particular vase would be a 3D printer. That is the easiest way to do it, but the material is not the same. So it's not a fully accurate reproduction of the artifact in terms of dimensions and materials, but it is an accurate representation.
And you do have a 3D print of it, don't you?
I do.
You showed me.
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
This is it. Yes. So the material it's actually 3D printed plastic, but the geometries and the reproduction is just exactly as like the original, and to the STL file.
But it's not the same size, is it? It's smaller, or is it the same size?
Yes, it's the same size.
Okay, it's fairly.
It's a very small. Yeah, it's a small artifact. It's a small urn.
Yeah.
And so
Nice.
there it is, 3D printed.
But you haven't got this dotted structure, this dotted pattern on the outside as the original.
No, no. But the interesting thing is, and if you read the Mark Quist's article, he explains very well the differences in and variations in it that are only they're down to the micron. Some of them. What I measured in Indianapolis, the inside bore was within 0.002 of an inch of being true. And measuring the lugs, I was astounded to learn that they were concentric with the inside bore.
Okay, so it's a very long article and there's a lot of math in it, but can you just explain a little bit what we're seeing here? This is the first image in the article where there are all these concentric circles adding up to a beautiful flower in the middle. What can you tell us about that?
There's an interesting story behind that. You're pulling all these interesting stories out of me now.
Sorry.
When I first saw the report and the article, and I saw the flower of life, it reminded me of when I was analyzing the Ramses face, and I found correspondences in the Ramses face that where a flower of life fit very nicely in terms of defining features on the face, like the eyelids, the mouth, the nose, all of these features. The flower of life seem to fit. Now, when I describe that in my book, I wrote a caveat to why I was presenting it, and the caveat is kind of like, okay, this is what I am able to discern in this artifact. That does not mean that was the intention of the original creators to convey that kind of information, but the way why I include it is to convey more the complexity of the artifacts, right? But we really, unless we are able to
maybe we're looking at what some people call sacred geometry here.
Yes, I mean that is a term that has been applied to to these geometric calculations. The flower of life seems to fit within that.
So the measurements and that you did and the analysis here led to certain conclusions about how this must have been made, and the conclusions were that this could never have been made by hand or by an ordinary potter's wheel or something like that. It must have been something more advanced, some more advanced machinery involved in this manufacturing of this vase. Am I right?
Exactly right. One of the issues that you have when you consider, manufacturing something like this is the machine that you would make it on would have to have very precise bearings. Very precise bearings.
Mm. So the
Because
people who made this urn, they had access to some kind of kind of computing machines.
Yes, something that had greater control over a tool, a material, than the human hand or eye.
Yeah.
And so, in our civilization, we have developed tools to assist us in that way, to create things more precise than human hand or eye can create. And so the assumption is that to create this artifact, the ancients had to do the same thing.
Yeah. Could we do something like this today?
I think we would have to start with the simplest ways that we can come up with to create that object without introducing the idea that computers were involved.
Yeah.
And I say that because historically we have created very, very complicated products over the years without the assistance of computers.
Yeah.
And it seems to be the first go-to in modern times to say, well, you need CNC and you need computers. And it may be determined that you do. But I would start with a more simpler, old-fashioned means of trying to create.
Yeah, but like we were talking about when we talked about the Ramses statues. It's one thing to manufacture, to make one urn, one vase like this without computers, perhaps. But if you make hundreds of them looking exactly the same, then it's a different story, I guess. It needs.
Yes, and really, when you. The thing is that a lot of times we'll look at these things and we'll isolate them from everything else. And you really, you bringing up the subject of Ramses, now you're actually bringing us closer to introducing the idea of using computers and CNC. But if we isolate this particular vase and consider older technologies, you may be able to create it.
Okay.
You still need to have very precise bearings and movement.
It's obviously very advancedly made anyway. So,
right.
Talking about the provenance here, how sure can we be that this actually is from ancient Egypt, and what can we say about its age? I know that you can't really date stone, which is a problem, but what are your thoughts on this?
My concerns about the provenance was that there's no chain of custody in terms of where it was discovered in Egypt, who discovered it, the path it took before it was exported, who exported it, and who received it. And so all of those all of those points would could cause it to be dismissed as an item of evidence, but true evidence. However, considering the appearance of the ellipsoid, which is, if you recall, in lost technologies of ancient Egypt, I present many examples of the ellipse being used in the statuary and in the temples in Egypt, particularly at Dendar. And so the ellipse and the ellipsoids were known by the ancient Egyptians, even though the ellipse was supposedly only described 500 AD in Greece. So there is that aspect of it that kind of resonates with me to make me think, yeah, I think this is Egyptian. And then when Mark discovered the flower of life aspect of it, it prompted me to think, okay, so we have this thing that we don't know where it came from in Egypt, and we don't even know if it is from Egypt, but look at this. It is an item that has the same precision as a Ramses statue. It has also features that are discernible in the Ramses statues, and there is the flower of life. And so,
compelling enough, I guess.
That kind of, to me, is kind of like, okay, I would say this is a nice threshold piece. It's not the final answer. There's a lot more to be learned. But it is something to say to the Egyptians, this is what we found on this thing. We realize that the provenance is kind of murky, not properly established. But you have items in your museum that you can guarantee the provenance of. And what we would like to do is take one of those and do this and subject them to the same examination.
Exactly. That would be fantastic. And there is actually one artifact I wanted to ask you about that possibly could be subjected to the same kind of examination, and that's the famous drill core number seven from William Flinders Petrie, the British father of Egyptology in the 19th century, and you have examined that, and others have too, and there is a discussion going on as to whether the grooves on this drill core are spiral or horizontal, and you are adamant that they're spiral. It's a spiral groove, which indicates that there must have been some kind of powerful drill involved here, and other people say that no, they're just horizontal grooves. And do you think that an examination employing modern technology, like in this case, also on the Petrie drill core, would once and for all settle that discussion about that artifact?
Probably is the only way that argument will be settled. My methods have been called into question and dismissed by the other camp. The other camp used methods that I question and dismiss, and so I don't accept their findings. They don't accept my findings. And so neither one of us are going to convince the other one. What is needed is an independent, objective analysis using the same methods that we used on the base, which would be to scan it, create an STL file, and make that STL file available to engineers around the world who can perform their own analysis, and hopefully will come to the truth of the matter.
Now, people who question that, this whole idea that the impressive structures of Egypt must have been constructed with the help of advanced technology, machinery, they often ask, so where are the machines now? That's a common question, right? What is your standard answer to that question?
Yes, the I could ask the question about a lot of machines that have been used in the past. Where are they now? Uh, I mean, we we've had we've had machines at the plant that I worked for 27 years. I wonder where they are now. Well, some of them I know that they're in some that they've been melted down and used for something else, whatever. But the when you look at the age or the time period when these machines would have been used, and you go back to the official period of time, the dynastic Egyptians, we're looking at 4,500 years ago, and there's nothing in the archaeological record that indicates that those machines were known about, understood, or not even any remnants of them, except for one, I think. But that's in my book, my next book. There is significant evidence that I will present about a part of the machine that I think exists. And but the when you do look in the archaeological record, no, there's no sophisticated machinery to say, yeah, well, those are the machines. Ferrous materials, they're subject to corrosion, and over thousands of years, that corrosion could, I mean, they could just turn into dust eventually. But are we limited in the time period that we have to look into for when these machines existed, and or can we go back further in time? And I kind of I support the idea of a previous civilization that was met with a cataclysm.
Okay, you're backing that theory. I was going to ask about that. Yes, go on, please.
Yeah, I mean it's not my theory, but it is a theory out there, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and particularly when you are considering the the degradation and the disappearance and the remnants, or what was left over after a cataclysm of this civilization. Because what we have now is with the pyramids and all those marvelous granite artifacts is just the skeleton of the civilization. Actually understanding how the flesh and the blood functioned and operated, how everything was tied together. That's another matter altogether. If you look at the way our society has evolved and how it exists, it's very complex, and it's made up of different specialties. They all have a certain language. They have certain specialized knowledge. It's nuanced. It's not. It stays within a particular group or company. There's proprietary information that people don't want to share. So all of this is going on 1,000 times over every day throughout the world, and so it's kind of like how do you make sense of this civilization? If you were a person assigned to accurately describe everything that was going on today, down to the minutest detail, there's no one individual has that power or intelligence or information, knowledge. It'd be impossible. But if we look at this ancient civilization, which is Egypt, the people that we make responsible for explaining all of that are archaeologists and historians. Well, I think we expect too much of them.
I promised before that we talk a little bit about your new book, and you have already touched upon it, and it's very intriguing that you say that you have in that book evidence of of a machine, which is very, very intriguing, as I said. But so the title is Giza, the Tesla connection, and Tesla is very topical, of course. Is
Right.
talked about more than Einstein these days, I think.
Yeah.
So, do you make new revelations apart from that machine, and you can talk about that too, that will once again change everything, you think?
I think so. I like to think so. Not because of something that I have discovered, particularly, though there are additional discoveries that I made that I include in the book that support the Giza power plant theory. But the major one is actually was made by a NASA physicist, Dr. Friedemann Freund. And Friedemann had discovered the physics behind earthquake lights. And so that discovery, he was hoping that he would be able to, his discovery would be accepted, adopted, and used to predict when earthquakes were going to strike. But the fundamental physics behind it is that when the rock, igneous rock, the minerals in the rock are stressed, the rock turns into a battery. There's what they call peroxide defects in the minerals, and these positive whole charge carriers, when they're put under pressure, they will shoot to the surface, and that's what causes these earthquake lights. So think about that. There's that we are actually standing on top of a huge battery, and there are parts, there are areas in around the world that make it easier to access that energy. Giza is one of them, and there's a lot more to it. I have a research associate, Robert Porter, who's an acoustic engineer, and then Eric Wilson, the aerospace engineer. But Friedemann Freund is a brilliant man. I met him the end of last year. Went to his lab at the SETI Institute in Silicon Valley out in California. And we had a very nice meeting. He was a brilliant guy. But his discovery, for me, actually dovetails perfectly into the primary source of energy that the pyramids were tapping into, and that is the electrons contained within the lithosphere, which is up to 100 kilometers thick. That's a lot of power.
Oh yeah, is that the Tesla connection?
The Tesla connection is, number one, how do you drive the machine? Okay, what impels it to vibrate? And also, once that energy is fed through it, how is it distributed? And so I actually have an image. I haven't published that to the internet yet. Maybe I'll send you a copy of it. But it shows the Great Pyramid with a Tesla dome around it.
Sounds cool.
So, but because the way Peter Friedemann Freund demonstrated his discovery was by taking a slab of granite, and he equipped it with an electrode. He capped it on one end and ran an electrode from the other end, which was actually captured inside a hydraulic press. And so he put pressure on the on one end, and then there was a wire. There's a little handshaking going on, and with the cap on the other end, and electricity flowed. after he was put under pressure.
Fascinating. Can't wait
Yeah,
to get my
and he
hands on
floated
your new
for a
book
long
to
time
read about
too.
this.
Right. So that to me is like, okay, then we look at a different concept of how we access energy, because right now, here's a little interesting factoid for you. In 2021, in the US alone, enough coal was mined by weight to build 76 Great Pyramids. So think of that. A pyramid, 76 times the size of the Great Pyramid, that went into power plants and was burned up so that we could harvest electrons from the generators that rotated. But look at the processes involved, like mining,
Yeah,
transportation.
it is a little bit like the Stone Age, actually, when you look at it. Do you think, I mean, some people say, many people say, or many, but quite a few people I listen to on YouTube at least, they say that we've had this advanced technology for a long time, and many leaders know about it, but they have been suppressing this knowledge. And I'm not saying that we've had it all the way from the ancient Egyptians up to now, but at least since Tesla, for instance, or something like that we've known how to harness energy, because everything is energy, everything is vibrating. I mean, on the quantum level, everything is energy. So there is technology that has been suppressed because there's so much money involved in all these businesses that are involved in the oil and coal industry. What do you think about this?
Yes, I think I know that there have been some very bright people out there who feel that their ideas have been suppressed. And seems to be a tendency that if you come up with an idea and it pertains to the, like myself, okay, I think we're closer. I'm closer with this next book to describing more fully a better way to harness electricity. I fully expect that it's going to be, I don't know, 50, 60 years before people may take it seriously. I don't know. It may be next week. Depends who gets involved. I mean, if Elon Musk decides, hey, if I want a reliable source of electricity to power all the cars I'm making, I need to build my own power plant. What's the best thing to do? But I don't know. So that's why I devote the book to future generations, because I think when you look at the continuum of scientific development, invention, when things are conceived, when they're brought into fruition, how they are adopted, and that, yes, and there are vested interests that would prevent new technologies being introduced that would make their investment worthless.
Yeah, as an aside, or actually it has to do with this, of course, are you familiar with Malcolm Bendel's work? Bendel?
No, I don't know. I haven't.
Australian engineer, and he's been working for many years on how to harvest clean or harness clean energy, just like your subtitle of your new book says, and directly from the atomic level or even the Planck scale level. And if there is any fuel involved, it's plasma or plasmoids, and the prototypes that he has built to build some kind of plants have no moving parts, and patents have been secured for the applications, but the science is supposed to be open source. But I know that this guy, I mean, I've heard this from Randall Carlson, another man who is very big into talking about lost civilizations and all that, but he knows this Malcolm guy, and Malcolm Bendel has been working secretly on an island in the Indian Ocean for the last 7 years, because he knows that people are after him. They want to suppress this. They want to stop this. So it's kind of sounds like some kind of a bad movie or something, but it's it's actually happening.
I don't get into conspiracy theories that much, but I could, I suppose, but I'd rather not.
Yeah.
I'd rather not. I just want to share my work openly. I don't want, it's like, and as far as building a great pyramid and demonstrating it myself, it's way beyond my resources. I don't have $25 billion to build a great pyramid.
No, but you're doing a great job, and all your findings and conclusions have been so enormously helpful to the whole community that's looking into this, and to the general public as well, and as you say, to coming future generations.
I seem to be catching on more, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think will happen in this field in the near future? I think we're wrapping this up a little bit here now. Do you see any signs that archaeologists and Egyptologists are starting to rethink the technology of ancient Egypt?
They are in Egypt, I can tell you that. Because my second book, when I saw how the first book was being received in the West, I thought I need to appeal to Egyptian engineers, and so there was one engineer that took up the challenge that I laid out in my book, and he started to follow my work and do his own measurements, and he create his own YouTube channel. His name's Ahmed Adli, wonderful young man. And his channels, it's got millions of views on some of his videos, and he's become very, very well known and respected in the Arabic-speaking world. And
is it in Arabic or in English as well?
It is in Arabic right now. Yeah.
Okay. I can put the link in the description. I mean, I might have some people who know Arabic listening to this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes. I mean, he's become very, very well known, and he's a physicist at Cairo University reached out to him because he had done one of his episodes on the Giza power plant theory, and so this excited a physicist at Cairo University, Dr. Ashraf Shabini, and he had a meeting with him, and I'll send you can show a photograph of them talking about the Giza power plant theory. And so there are, Shabini supports the pyramid machine idea. It's becoming more accepted, particularly by younger people in Egypt who don't want to listen to the old stories by Egyptologists. They would much rather talk about lost technologies and their ancestors being a lot more advanced than what they've been given credit for.
Yeah, that sounds.
That's the state of play right now. Wake up the Egyptians and let them take it from there. It's their history, their monuments, and they have the most to gain.
Right. Way
to
go.
Have the most to gain.
Yeah. So, Chris, where can people find your new book, your earlier books, and other work that you've done if they're interested in knowing more?
Yes, all the books are available on all the books. My two books are available on Amazon.com, probably other outlets too. I mean, they can be ordered through bookstores if they don't exist on the shelves, or there are many different libraries that carry them. So those sources will also be available for my next book. So they'll be found on online bookstores, brick and mortar bookstores. Yeah, I mean, you could probably buy one cheaper from Amazon than you can me.
No website. You don't have a website?
My website, which is under a revision right now, is kind of plugged along without much attention for many years, and I've been encouraged to do something about it, and I am doing something about it. So GizaPower.com is my website.
Oh yeah, GizaPower.com. Yeah,
GizaPower.com. So it needs a little help, but it's going to get it. I think it was created in frames
Okay.
back in 1999.
Ancient.
So the
Talking
backbone is
about
not
ancient
very
history. Yeah.
right. So it definitely needs improving.
So, Chris Dunn, thank you so much for joining the show, and good luck with your groundbreaking investigations out there.
Well, thank you very much, Anders. It's been a pleasure talking to you.